Welcome Exiles. Today I bring you a comprehensive guide about the mechanics of Poisonous Concoction, how to deal damage with it, how to gear properly, and some leveling tips towards the end. I had received some questions in the comments on part 1, so I wanted to make an explanation going over important mechanics with examples within this build so you can understand it further. I will do my best to incorporate as much information here in as little time as I can. Please make sure you check out part 1 as well. Thank you. The foundation of our damage comes down to two things: increasing the bonuses from our equipped Quiver and increasing our critical chance and damage. Now, what are those modifiers that you must have on the Quiver for this build to be successful? First and most important, +2 levels of projectile skills. Let's talk about why. Every level of PConc increases the raw damage, which turns out matters a lot for the overall damage you deal. PConc's gem level directly scales in multiples of 50, so an increase of 49% will not grant you an extra gem level like an increase of 50% would. This is extremely important because you don't want to be spending divines on upgrades and be a couple of percent off of the next threshold. Always be aware of your number of increased bonuses from your Quiver. Now, I'm going to explain what will happen to your PConc at each threshold, but I'm going to do so assuming the most optimized setup for simplicity's sake. I'm going to assume you are level 90 because that provides you with a level 20 PConc as it's an ascendancy ability, +3 levels of projectile skills on your amulet, +1 levels of all chaos skills from the tree, and +1 levels of supported chaos skills from the Chaos Mastery support gem. This gives us a base level of 25. You will always have the levels from the tree and support gem since they are free to acquire, but a +3 amulet and level 90 can be expensive or difficult to acquire, so if you have anything less than that, just deduct the appropriate levels. Now, you will also have a +2 Quiver since it's mandatory, and that mod alone is not expensive. Only when it's combined with other good mods does it become pricey. Anyway, that +2 will be multiplied by the percentage of bonuses you have accumulated. So, at 300%, the +2 levels will be multiplied by 3, equaling 6. 6 levels from the Quiver plus 25 base levels equals a level 31 PConc, and every 50% increased bonuses after that grants you an extra level. So 350% is level 32, 400% is level 33, and 450% is level 34. Now, what do you need to achieve each threshold? Counting the 80% from the skill tree, which you will have, all you need to do for the 300% threshold is at least a 220% Widow Hail, which literally just costs 1 Exalt. It's very easy. For 350% you require at least a 270% Widow Hail, which will cost from 1 to 2 divines, or alternatively, you can get a Widow Hail between 240 and 250% for an Exalt, and make up the difference in jewels with increased bonuses to your Quiver as a modifier. Keep in mind though, a single jewel with this modifier will probably cost around 1 divine each. To achieve 400% you require a 270% Widow Hail and 4 jewels with at least 13% increased bonuses each, or 5 jewels with at least 10% each. Lastly, 450% is really expensive to pull off, and most people probably won't bother going for it. This is why I haven't included it as a 4th threshold. However, if you really want to min-max the build, then reaching 450% will require a Widow Hail with at least 295% and 5 jewels with 15% increased bonuses each. A Widow Hail like that will put you back around 15 to 20 divines alone, and perfect jewels with 15% are around 3 divines each. Personally, I have exactly 350%, 252 from the Widow Hail, 18 from jewels, and 80 from the tree. I spent 5 exalts on the Widow Hail, 1 divine on 1 jewel, and got lucky and crafted the other jewel, so generally not that expensive to get to a nice threshold. While you're reaching these thresholds, you should also be working on your critical hit chance and damage. Let's talk about that and the Quiver a little bit since they coincide with each other. Firstly, because we are a crit and not a poison build, we can only stack 2 poisons on a target at a time. However, the game will choose the 2 highest damage poisons out of multiple PConc throws, which with a high critical chance are likely to be 2 crit poisons, and depending on your crit damage bonus, they will be multiplied by that number, which will result in 2 substantially high damage poisons on the target, as well as continuously critting the target with massive hits. This is how crit and poison work together, and why it's mechanically important to strive for around 40 to 50% crit chance and upwards of 400% crit damage. When it comes to the Quiver, it is incredibly important to have increased crit chance on it, and if you can get that on a crit chance base, then that's even better. It's so important because it's the only way that we can comfortably reach around 40 to 50% crit chance on PConc, since the crit gets boosted by a massive multiplier depending on your total percent of increased bonuses from the Quiver, along with the critical weakness debuff from Eye of the Winter, causing hits against affected targets to have plus 0.5% to base crit chance, and that can stack up to 20 times. At 20 stacks we get another 10% base crit, meaning we only need around 30 to 40% base crit to comfortably be critting a lot. We also get 80% increased crit chance and 1% increased base crit chance from our tree alone. As a bonus, Eye of the Winter also increases our chaos damage by 70% because we have it linked up with the Wither support gem. As an example, personally I only have 49% increased crit chance on my Quiver, which is a bit low, but with my 350% increased bonuses, that becomes 136.5% plus 80% crit and 1% base crit. I get a total of 216.5% increased crit, resulting in a 22.32% base crit chance on my PConc, and after critical weakness a total of 32.32%, which is a bit on the lower side, but if you think about it, I throw out 3 PConcs at a time, so on average at least one of them should crit. Therefore, I should be critting basically every single time I click PConc, which feels great. Critical damage bonus on the Quiver is good too, but it's not a priority because there's no point having massive crit damage if you're never critting. If you can get it, great, but if not, don't worry. You can get crit damage from other sources such as the tree, jewels and other pieces of gear. Generally, you're looking to have upwards of 400% crit damage bonus on an optimized setup, and you will get 155% crit damage from the tree alone, so it's not too difficult without having it on your Quiver. I don't have it on my Quiver, however, I have 37% crit damage from my jewels, and that plus the tree gives me a total of 357% crit damage on my PConc. The other priority on the Quiver is increased damage of bow skills. Firstly, it's unknown whether this is intended or not, probably not, but either way it works, so it is what it is. This modifier just adds a huge amount of damage to PConc after the multiplier, and it's the second priority right after +2 projectile skills. You should be looking for at least around 40% increased damage with bow skills if you can. Personally, I have 46%, and after the 350 bonus that becomes 161%. Lastly, these next modifiers are really nice if you can get them, but only look for them after getting the ones mentioned previously. Attack speed feels really nice and it increases your damage because you can throw out your flasks faster. Same with projectile speed, although the difference is that with projectile speed it's not you throwing it faster, rather they hit the ground faster after leaving your hands. If you can get both, that will feel great. If you can't get your hands on a crit chance Quiver base, then an attack speed base is a great alternative, and ultimately if you would rather have a bit less crit chance but more attack speed, then that's up to you. Other modifiers that are useful are accuracy and dexterity. They kind of go hand in hand though, since dex increases accuracy. Accuracy is a good quality of life mod that will make it so you don't have to worry about basically ever missing anything, and dexterity is great because on this build you need high dex and int attributes, and if you can get tons of dex on the Quiver, it opens up more possibilities of getting int from other places. Finally, I just want to show you my Quiver, which I bought for 1 divine, and it provides me with 136.5% crit chance, 161% increased damage with bow skills, plus 6 levels of projectile skills, and 91 dexterity. You can see how quickly things ramp up in this build, and this is why it's so important to reach these thresholds of increased bonuses from equipped Quiver and to have the right mods on it. Lastly, for the damage section, just quickly going over the clearing capabilities of this build as well as mentioning chaos damage. Chaos damage is pretty simple and doesn't need any explaining. Any increases to chaos damage boosts our PConc damage since poison is chaos damage. In our tree we take a bunch of increased chaos damage nodes as well as a few nodes towards Wither, which we apply with Eye of the Winter because it's linked with the Wither support gem. Wither applies a stack and debuff that increases our chaos damage by 5% for each stack, up to 10 times, but with the increased effect of Wither on the tree this gets increased by 30%, so when we apply Wither to enemies, we essentially increase our chaos damage by 70%. Also, if you can get increased chaos damage on both of your rings, that would be great. As for our clear, most of it comes from Corpse Weight Greaves, which is a very cheap unique costing 1 exalt, and it triggers the Decompose skill on step. Decompose is a skill that consumes corpses around you to create a cloud of poisonous gas. It poisons enemies as though dealing 39% of the corpse's maximum life on a level 18 Decompose skill, and it gains 50% more area of effect per second up to a maximum of 200%. This, in addition to Contagious Contamination and Ascendancy ability, provides us with all of our clearing capabilities, and it's pretty good. It's definitely not the best clearing build out there, but it for sure does its job. Thanks to the Corpse Weight Greaves, you won't have to throw out so many PConcs as well, thus making this build feel smoother. The gas clouds appear very quickly and ramp up, spreading larger area of effect. The Decompose skill also consumes the corpses quickly, and this all synergizes with each other really well to allow us to not have any clearing problems. I think that just about sums up the damage mechanics of this build. Hopefully I explained it all fairly clearly, but always feel free to ask me more questions in the comments below. Now, I wanted to quickly go over leveling this build. I recommend leveling with Lightning Arrow and Lightning Rod until level 16, then switch up to Gas Arrow only if you have the Radiant Grief unique helmet, which costs 1 exalt. Otherwise, keep going with Lightning Arrow. This is because it has a really powerful synergy with exploding the Gas Arrow, dealing massive AoE and single target damage. Around level 25 you can do your first trial where you can unlock Poisonous Concoction, but if you want to use it straight away you need a Widow Hail and Glowswarm unique ring, plus a charges per second gained mana flask to be able to keep up the charges on bosses. You can also get a belt with reduced flask charges used, and you also need to get a Quiver with +1 levels of projectile skills and some % increased damage of bow skills, and pick up Master Fletcher on the tree as well. This should be enough to sustain your charges and have enough damage to complete the rest of the campaign. Of course, throughout the leveling, make sure you're upgrading the most important things, such as getting +2 levels of projectile skills as soon as possible, as well as getting more % increased damage to bow skills, and things like attack speed, projectile speed, increased chaos damage, and slowly working towards crit chance and crit damage. Alternatively, if you would rather level without PConc, then either Gas Arrow and Radiant Grief or Lightning Arrow are great options. However, I can't suggest how to level these properly all the way through the campaign, as I didn't do that myself. Also, make sure you're getting things like more life, evasion, energy shield, capping your resistances, and movement speed. As for the skill tree, this is how I would do it. You don't necessarily have to do it the exact same way as I am showing you here. Make sure you're always picking up the nodes that are the most useful to you at any given point, but this is just an example of how I roughly went through the campaign and then up to level 90. And with all that being said, thank you for watching this video. I hope you're all having a great early access. Stay exiled.